What if I told you that in the middle of New York City, surrounded by millions of people, traffic and noise, there's a place where, not long ago, thousands were sent away, not to be seen, not to be heard, and in many cases, not to be remembered? Right between Manhattan, Queens, and the Bronx sits Randalls and Wards Islands. Today, it looks peaceful. Open fields, stadium lights, runners passing by, families enjoying the view of the skyline. It feels like a place designed for life. But this land was once built for isolation. And the deeper you go into its history, the more unsettling it becomes. Before it became one island, there were actually two, Randalls Island and Wards Island. In the 1800s, as New York City rapidly grew, it faced a problem it didn't know how to solve. What to do with the people it couldn't or wouldn't integrate into society. So instead of fixing the system, the city moved the problem. Out of sight, across the water, on Wards Island, massive institutions were built. Hospitals, shelters, and most notably, a mental asylum that would become one of the most infamous in American history. Thousands of patients were sent there. Some truly needed care. Others were simply inconvenient. Immigrants who didn't speak English. Women who didn't fit social expectations. People who were poor, alone, or misunderstood. And once they arrived, leaving wasn't easy. In 1887, a young journalist named Nellie Bly decided to expose what was really happening inside. She pretended to be mentally ill and got herself committed. What she experienced inside those walls would shock the entire nation. She described long, silent days where patients were forced to sit motionless for hours, cold baths that felt unbearable, meals that barely felt like food, nurses who treated patients not with care, but with control. But the most disturbing part? Many of the women inside weren't insane at all. They were trapped, simply because no one believed them. Nellie Bly later wrote that once she entered, even acting normal didn't help. Doctors dismissed her sanity. The system was designed in a way where getting in was easy, but getting out was nearly impossible. Her investigation led to public outrage and reforms. Funding increased. Conditions improved, but for many who had already suffered there, it was too late. And just across the narrow channel, Randalls Island told a different, but equally heavy story. This island became home to children, thousands of them. Orphans, abandoned kids, children from families too poor to support them. They were placed into institutions meant to provide care. But reality was often far more complicated. Imagine being a child in the 1800s, taken from everything familiar, placed on an island surrounded by water, where the city skyline is visible, but completely out of reach. Some reports from that time describe overcrowded dormitories, strict discipline, and emotional neglect. For many children, this wasn't just a place to grow up. It was a place where they learned to survive. And here's something most people don't realize. These islands weren't just separate institutions. They were part of a larger system across New York, including places like Blackwell's Island and Hart Island. Together, they formed a kind of hidden network where the city quietly relocated its most vulnerable populations. If you were poor, sick, or unwanted in 19th century New York, there was a chance you would end up on one of these islands, and in some cases, never return. There are records suggesting that many who died in these institutions were buried with little recognition. Just across the water on Hart Island, thousands upon thousands were laid to rest without names. Think about that for a moment. Entire lives lived within sight of one of the greatest cities in the world, yet completely invisible to it. And then, something changed. As the 20th century progressed, attitudes began to shift. Mental health care slowly evolved. Child welfare systems improved. Public awareness grew. The very institutions that once defined these islands began to shut down. Buildings were abandoned, then demolished. And in one of the most unexpected transformations in New York City's history, the islands themselves were reshaped. Landfill connected Randalls and Wards into one. A new identity began to form. Not a place of isolation, but a place of gathering. Today, thousands of people come to Randalls and Wards Islands for sports, music festivals, and recreation. It's one of the largest public spaces in the city. But here's the strange part. Very few people know what used to be here. You can stand on a field where children once slept in crowded rooms, run along paths where patients once walked under supervision, sit peacefully in a place that once held so much unrest. And you'd never know, unless you looked deeper. Because history doesn't always disappear. Sometimes it just gets covered by grass, covered by time, covered by a city that keeps moving forward. But the stories remain, in quiet ways, in forgotten records, in old photographs, in the silence of a place that once held thousands of voices. And maybe that's what makes this story so powerful. It's not just about what happened here, it's about how easily it was forgotten. So the next time you pass by Randalls and Wards Islands, or even see it from a bridge or train, ask yourself this: how many places around us carry stories we've never been told? And how many of those stories are still waiting to be remembered?